Okay, good evening, everybody. Thanks for coming. Welcome to the School of Visual Arts, and welcome to the Design Criticism MFA program. I'm Alice Twemlow, chair of the program. And the sad news is that this is the last event in our 4 lecture series. I have no idea what I'm going to do with my Tuesday nights until the spring. But the good news is that the first year students are already planning the series for the spring. Each spring semester, I charge the students with the job of selecting the speakers and hosting the speakers for that series. And they've already lined up a really nice list, including Noah Rosenberg, who's the founder of the long-form journalism startup Narratively, or narrative.ly, I'm not sure how you say that. Political and cultural critic Virginia Postrel, and Susanna Drake of DL and Studio. And I think her proposal for this very flexible and adaptive system for lower Manhattan to manage sea level rise and flooding seems particularly prescient in the aftermath of the Sandy superstorm, so we're going to be watching that lecture very closely. Another palliative in the absence of Tuesday night lectures at DCRIT can be found by watching videos of all the lectures that you've missed from the series, and they're all located on our website, so do check that out. But the best antidote of all is that we have the curator and retailer Maury Moss as our final guest, and I can't wait to start talking with him. But before we do that, just a few brief announcements. First of all, I want to make sure you all know that you're invited to our holiday drinks, which is in the room next door, directly following the Q&A with Murray. In fact, elves are working right now, preparing French 75s and snacks for your delectation, so do join us. The second thing I need to mention is that in addition to it being the season in which halls are decked with holly and so on, it's also the season in which graduate applications are prepared. To help prospective students better understand this program, we made this brochure, which I hope you've had a chance to have a look at, and if you haven't, check it out in the room next door afterwards. And it's all about what graduates of the program go on to do. Because I often tell people how exciting it is that they're working as researchers, editors, writers, curators, and so on, but it often sounds a bit abstract. So in this brochure, we get to hear from the graduates themselves, in their own words, about how they found the program, what they learned here, and what they went on to do, how DCRIT still figures in their working and social lives. To give you a couple of examples that are actually sort of apposite for tonight's discussion, this is Amelie Zedarek, who was, when she came to the program, already an accomplished journalist from Vienna, and she just had this dream to become a curator. So it worked out pretty well for her, because 2 months after graduating, she was appointed a curator at the Vitra Design Museum in Germany. And this is Fred Duarte. He's now based in Lisbon, organizing events and symposia, curating exhibitions, writing for international publications, all with the aim of reshaping the global design conversation. And lastly, Barbara Eldridge. She actually studied theatre and was a lighting designer, but found a new stage here at DCRIT with a thesis that asked why there were no guns in the MoMA design collection, and then got a job there, working with senior curator of architecture and design, Paola Antonelli, who teaches a class in curation here at DCRIT. So those are just 3 stories. Read the brochure for more, and for insights into what it's like to study design, architecture, and urban infrastructure with the pros. People like Metropolis contributing editor Carrie Jacobs, Studio 360 host Kurt Anderson, or the New York Times art critic Roberta Smith, who was here last night working with the students on reviewing exhibitions. The video of our open house, including really poignant remarks by Milton Glaser, is available on our website, as are full details of how to apply. So here at DCRIT, we consider design criticism to be something much broader, much more pervasive than a column-shaped piece of text that you might find in a newspaper. Our students learn the history of their subject, how to do extremely thorough research and reporting, how to develop an argument, craft a narrative, and then departing from this notion that criticism is only about writing, they then learn to deploy this kind of critical thinking across all kinds of media, including exhibitions, radio podcasts, blogs, conferences, events, and most recently, video essays. Some people find this concept takes a little bit of getting used to. When I put it to tonight's guest speaker, however, he responded immediately in an email saying, regarding different formats and media that your students might be interested in, we can touch upon fairs, galleries, websites, auctions, and museums, and literally thousands of small museums that purchase exhibitions from independent curators. Sound okay? Hell yes. Here's someone who clearly understands the excitement of working in multiple formats. The minute I first stepped into his SoHo store and encountered behind glass cases incongruous pairings of contemporary conceptual design and Rococo figurines, I knew that the tastemaker in charge here wasn't particularly interested in soothing the modernist mindset. Far from it, the Moss behind the Moss store wanted to blur boundaries between disciplines, like art, craft, and design, between the cultural and economic frameworks of a museum and a store. He wanted to mix time periods, styles, nationalities, and philosophies. And while that sounds like the recipe for a design minestrone, anyone who's actually visited the Moss store when it was in existence knows that the mixing was canny and calculated, steered by a clearly stated personal sense of aesthetic conviction. So earlier this year, as we all know, after 18 years of business and after having curated more than 100 exhibitions at the store and other venues, Murray and his partner Franklin Getchell closed their Greene Street store and launched a new venture, Moss Bureau, a consultancy providing services to manufacturers, design studios, and architectural firms, as well as offering curatorial and interior design services. So we're just so excited that Murray Moss is here tonight, joining us to reflect on the ways in which his store has shaped how we think about design, and to speculate on the changing complexion of his role as a design curator moving forward into the next phase of his career. I think we've got him here at a particularly interesting moment, and let's get on with it. So please join me in welcoming Murray Moss. That's for you. That's the better one.
Okay. Thank you for coming. That's very flattering.
Well, the students have to be here.
Oh. You don't have to say that.
No, they are delighted to be here. So,
How many people are students here?
Oh, this gang over here. Oh. Well, that's funny how that's worked out. It's interesting. Okay, so Murray, I'm going to prompt you to do some reminiscing into the past, some projecting into the future, and now you're going to summon some images to illustrate some points. My role here also is to integrate some questions from the first-year students who are over here. And if you don't mind, I'd like to just plunge straight in with one from them, which I think is a good way to start. So, should we take it?
Can I just say something?
Yeah.
One of the reasons why, do I need this?
Yeah,
Can you hear me? Yeah, okay.
Can you hold it up a bit?
Yeah. One of the reasons why I never went out of the house for 18 years, basically. And now I'm getting out of the house. And I used to be an actor, which my friends that are here know. And I believe that if you schlep all the way someplace, you get dressed, you get on the train, you go, that the point of it is that it's live. So we agreed to keep this sort of ad hoc, not rehearsed. I don't have a shtick, I don't have a spiel. Well, let me correct myself, I do. I have a 30-minute shtick, a 60-minute shtick, an hour-and-a-half shtick, and I have one with an intermission. However, I'm putting that aside because I feel you're entitled to, and I'm here, what do I get out of this? I'm entitled to the reality of a live situation. You're encountering me, but I'm encountering you. And so the hesitation, the embarrassment, the awkwardness, whatever might happen, that's what it's for. So that's what I'm up for. As long as there's no physical violence. In which case, look out. Okay, having said that.
Well, you heard it. All right, so let's plunge in with this question. First, question from Anna Marie. I'm going to ask you to stand up, Anna Marie, just to make yourself heard. Thanks.
You're a student?
Yes.
Hi.
So when we first started the design criticism program this fall, we each introduced ourselves by writing about one object of personal significance. So some object you already owned that was autobiographical in some way. If you had to choose one object to introduce yourself, what would it be?
Are you a writer for Architectural Digest? Well, it's okay. I'm going to do the interesting. You should ask that question. Answer. First of all, it's quite an astute question because it has to do with why. I sort of wrote down on a piece of scratch paper when I started, had the idea to start a store, the fact that I wanted it to be autobiographical. I was 40 years old when I sold my fashion company, 45 when I opened up Moss, and I called it Moss because I didn't want to call it the Contemporary Design Gallery or 20th Century Design. I wanted to call it Moss because I didn't want to be a slave to it. I wanted to drag it along with me. And I figured, today I'll go to a movie and I'll learn something, I'll see something, and hopefully I'll change a little bit, or I'll change my thinking, or something's bound to happen. Or else I'd be dead. And rather than service a brand and say, oh my God, I've moved ahead now, I'm not the same Murray, so now I have to spend the rest of my life protecting the brand, I thought it'll go where I go, like it or not. So that if I got into air conditioning or refrigeration, that's where Moss would go. So every object, to be honest with you, the long answer is, every object is an object which I chose every object. I had help in researching, but I went to every fair. I chose personally every object, and I always wrote down why I chose that object, why I liked it, so that I would remember when it arrived 6 or 8 months later what it was, why I liked it. Because 6 or 8 months later, not that I would have forgotten, but I probably would have a different answer, and I wanted to remember my original impulse. Having said all that, I have a thing about crucifixes. I'm Jewish, but I don't practice religion. I wasn't raised with religion. But there's something about the human form as rendered in all medium throughout millennium, which I have always found fascinating. The idea of the human condition, suffering, redemption. I sort of, it's an object where even in the most modernist of times, the diehards, it's one exception to the ban on the figural. So I've always, I would say that, not that I have a Christ identity, for those of you that are writing that down. Maybe I do, but that's not for you to determine. But I'm drawn to the figural, and so that's my. Does that?
Excellent. Thank you.
All right, great start. Thank you. Okay, now.
I jitter, by the way, because I have this little physical ailment, so I get nervous, but this is not nerves. This is just a motion disorder. So just having said that to get that out of the way.
Thank you. Well, now that we put you on the spot, I'd like.
It's on the spot?
Yeah.
You
I
don't know
thought
what
I
being on
thought
the
that
spot
was
is.
a little very nice answer to an off-the-cuff question. So I would like us to go back in time a little now to 1994, and I wonder if you can just describe for us briefly what circumstances led you to open Moss, the design store, in Soho in 1994. Tell us a little bit what Soho looked like at that time, what was going on, and what led you to open its doors.
Okay. Well, since it was before most of you were born, there were cars. If that's what you want to know.
I was curious.
No, what happened was, trying to remember. My premise was this. I had this fashion company, as I mentioned, and I was producing in Italy for 10 years, 12 years, and I saw all this stuff, this other disciplines, which most of it was unfamiliar to me, or certainly unfamiliar to me as being available in the United States. And when I segued out of fashion, I thought that these were extraordinary, that it would be interesting to explore the idea of bringing this object culture, which I looked upon like clothing as a functional object, soap is a juicer, you know. And I thought to bring them to, it fascinated me, I like things. And so I thought to bring it to the United States.
And sorry, was this all mainly in Italy that you're talking about?
Yeah, well, I decided I was going to do what I want. I wasn't going to be politically correct. I wasn't going to, God knows, think about making money. That part worked out correctly. What I was focusing on was what I was passionate about, and I decided that the whole subject of design was so overwhelmingly presented to me as an audience member and to the rest of us as something objective, not subjective, as good design, bad design. This is true, this is not true. And I didn't buy that. So, and I'd like to talk about that, which is this idea of criteria. So I decided I want that, and everything was ghettoized. There was a design district, more or less, in the East 60s. And I don't like ghettos where things are categorized for the convenience of the mercantile, you know, reasons. And I think that you learn by just opposing things. So I wanted to go, believe it or not, to a district that was not design, SoHo, ha ha ha. And so I've had this friend, Barbara Toll, she had a sliver of a gallery. She rented it to me, and the first thing the landlord asked was, this is not going to be a store, right? Because we don't have stores in Soho. I swear to God. So I said, oh, no. This is going to be a gallery, which is why it looked like that, because I had no investment in architecture. I mean, my investment was to communicate the narrative in these objects. So I thought I'll make it look like a museum, because at least in a museum, people go to question what's up. So I did a cartoon-like version of a museum, things behind cases, just so that you wouldn't miss the point. And I locked everything up, and I made my little mise en scene, the little this next to the that, next to the this, next to that, very, excuse the expression, curated, with the idea that you would ask, okay, I know it's a knife, but that's not the first, you don't need Murray Moss to tell you that's a knife, because what are you going to do, by accident buy a chair, think it's a chair? So I thought what I would contribute would be the non-functional aspects of functional objects. Because we all know, although it wasn't in polite society even as late as the mid-90s, it wasn't really, you couldn't really talk about the art, the narrative in functional objects. It just wasn't seemly. So it was sort of a behind closed doors thing. And so that's what I did. And I figured I'm squeezed between Pace and Metro Pictures. two of the most prominent galleries in the city, and I'm guaranteed of an audience. Twice a month, Metro will have an opening, the other guy will have an opening, and in between it will be my garbage cans and my shtick. And that audience, because we go to neighborhoods with expectations, will not be looking for, they won't go like, Cindy Sherman, garbage can, Chamberlain. They're going to go, Cindy Sherman, huh. Okay? And I thought that was why I...
Fantastic. So, but
and
what...
then, of course, it became a design district.
Yeah.
Make a long story short.
We'll get to that in a second. But first, just tell me what then, if you didn't put on the label knife, what kinds of stories did you tell on the labels?
Well, the first thing I did, my first window, well, first of all, I believe that in the subjective approach, that there is no absolute. So my idea was to take ubiquitous things, because it wasn't about what's new and hot. I mean, weirdly, we became known as what's new and hot, but I opened with Stelton. I wanted to revisit, I opened with Itola. I wanted to revisit, I wanted to show that, you know what, we didn't look at this carefully. Let's go back for a minute, okay? And so I opened with 12 different Itola vases in the window, which turned out to have been the largest purchase in New York of a retailer of Itola vases at the time. Wow. So I won a free trip to Finland. And because I looked at the Itola vase and I thought, okay, Itola vase, what's going on for Murray? Like, what do I see? And I thought, what's this guy doing? Why are there so many? Why do you need more than one? And it's because it's relentless, the lakes in Finland. So he did a variation over and over and over and over. And you think, I've got an Itola vase, what do I need another one? But it'd be like saying, we've got a lake in Finland, what do we need another one? So I thought I would illustrate without asking permission and without getting sanctioned from an academic person or theorist. I would just create the rivers of Finland.
That's a great narrative. How do you find out those stories? Do you spend a lot of time with the designers and manufacturers when you go visiting places?
Well, the weird thing is I'm not very materialistic. Things are dead, inanimate objects, and because we never sold heart valves, I wasn't really interested in the function. I can't change a battery. I don't really use a lot of things. Many of the companies we work with make very specific things, especially the cutlery companies make things you could peel a kiwi with. I mean, there's so many things. But what interested me was this sort of the bonus, the hidden agenda that a designer brings to an object when they fulfill the industrial brief. That was how it started. So it was an industrial design store, but it wasn't focused on the straightest line between problem and solution, because I left that to others. It wasn't interesting to me. It isn't that it isn't interesting, it wasn't interesting to me. What was interesting to me was the fact that, and this is maybe more utopian thinking or a more romantic point of view, which is, why did we have more chairs? Why does everybody design a chair? Why does everybody design a lamp? And I thought about it just as me, and I thought, people design a chair because a chair elevates us. Every chair is a throne. Every chair separates us, brings us off the ground, and elevates us amongst our peers. What if that is true? Then so I just go on like that.
So in fact, they're more your projections of narratives onto the objects than ones emerging from the designers.
They're entirely my own. And I changed my mind. And like sometimes I'll write down, I like that and I'm going to buy that for the store because it's round. It's so round, I can't get over how round it is. And I think that's and I write it down. Remember, Murray, round. So the thing comes, and it's really, really round. And then I think, how am I going to accentuate the roundness? So then I pick 6 other really round things, or 6 other square things. And because I think it's who's kidding who, maybe it is a vase, but the overwhelming thing about it is, to me, that it's round. And I declare it as such, not by writing a thesis on it, but by making it obvious to you that what Murray saw was round. What do you see? I should say that when I first opened, it was only about, one of our first clients was this important guy, Ron Lauder, from the cosmetics company, and he at the time was chairman of MoMA. And he, very soon after opening, invited me to take over the gift shop at MoMA. And I said, well, you have to, we've been open 6 months, so you have to buy Moss. And he said, okay, but I had to go before the committee, and I said, here's the deal, and I'll tell you why I'm saying this. I wanted to go in as a director, and I asked that I met Glenn Lowry. I said, my salary needs to be that of the match to the director, and I need to have curatorial status, and I need to have independence. Then I was called into a meeting where I felt I was like about 6 inches tall. The entire curatorial was staff. I got grilled, and of course it never happened. But because I was asked, what if, but I sat in a room with the whole curatorial staff of MoMA. And the reason that I did this was I look upon everything as a souvenir. I look upon Moss as a bookstore, or I did, which is a tangible evidence of an idea, of a way of thinking, like I look upon a painting, a 2-dimensional object. And I think a souvenir, to present a souvenir, a remembrance in the true 19th century French, is what objects are for. That everything is a souvenir of, and I'm talking about it non-medical, of things that I gravitate toward. And that we should, I proposed, in this meeting that I was thrown out of at MoMA, that what I would ask would be that every curatorial presentation the gift shop would carry a biography, a biographical display of that curator's thinking. The books they read, a picture of them in school, if they were on the swimming team, every personal fact that I could find, because I think that information feeds us, is relevant. I think it's dead on relevant.
Great. Well, talking of biographical information, what aspects of your former life in the theatre do you think, came over and informed your practice as a curator and a retailer at Moss?
Well, my uncle used to think that if you change jobs, my Uncle Harry used to think that if you change jobs, because I was 45 when I opened Moss, 40 when I sold the fashion company, 29 when I stopped being an actor. My Uncle Harry used to think you were shiftless. Okay? The point is, you never start from the beginning. You drag along, you evolve. You drag along who you are and all your skill set, let's say, with you. So what I was when I opened Moss was an actor who was a fashion entrepreneur who was a design merchant. So that was my combo. That was my DNA. So I thought, I'm not going to waste that. I'm going to use that. I think according to organizing collections. I'm very good at seasonal collections. So logistically, Moss was organized seasonally. In terms of theater, it's a language. I mean, what's a store about except if not communicating? So I had, training in that, and I was good at communicating. So I thought, I'm going to apply that, and I'm going to use the theatrical metaphor. you're the I have an audience, I have a stage in the window, I can control I make you, and I set out a list of do's and don'ts, what's allowable. You can't, your face in a certain direction because I didn't give you choices. I had aisles that set a direction thrust. There was no eating allowed, no drinking allowed. You couldn't bring your dog in, just like going to the theater. Because I felt, if I'm going to put out, I need you to meet me halfway. And I think that retail should make some demands and then deliver. And I wasn't casual about this. I wasn't like, you know, if it's raining and you're about to go to the movies, come on in, check it out. I had a fashion company, as I said. I saw too often people in the stores blindly, you know, run their hand through garments rather than shopping. Just, you know how you just run your hand through it. I saw people touching things, kicking things, and I thought, denial. If you deny people something, especially New Yorkers, like you can't touch this, people wake up. What do you mean I can't touch this? So already I had an audience that was alive. That was the...
That's a really good description, thank you. What were your favorite exhibitions over the years that you ran the store, or seasonal collections, perhaps is the way you refer to them?
Nymphenburg, I was in 2000. Nymphenburg is a ancient porcelain manufactory circa 1754. And what happened was I had defined myself as an industrial design store. And then something happened to me, which was bad, which was a friend of mine invited me, who is German, invited me to this royal porcelain manufacturing. In fact, she was a princess, still is. And she said, but it's not like you think. It's not old German porcelain. It's going to be contempo. It's new work. So Konstantin Grzic, you know, Ted Muehlling, which I love, okay? So I go to this manufactory, and I'm looking at the egg cup that's made from the old light fixtures from the 1930s, and it's kind of what you think, okay? But then I notice these figurines, the devil. You know, the devil to like an industrial design store are figurines of egg sellers. And what are you going to do with this, okay?
And what date is this, Murray?
So these were done in 1754.
But when you were discovering
1999. And this was and it turns out, in my ignorance, I didn't understand this, that these were by Franz Anton Bastelli, generally recognized in the art world as the greatest Rococo sculptor. So I thought, I kept like looking at that thing, thinking, you know, my world is falling apart because I like that. And I had spent too much time on 34th and Broadway seeing the bad versions. I never saw the good thing. And these were like brilliant. And I had forgotten that it was only since 1932, MoMA, bad MoMA, which had done, you know, the Machine Age, whatever it was called, Machine Art exhibition that Johnson did during his tenure, that this industrial aesthetic, absence of the figural, was I mean, I never wore pattern. I was a New Yorker. I only wore black, and suddenly I was liking the ultimate tchotchke. So I thought, go with that. But also, I remember growing up, you had to pick styles. You had, if you did your house, you went Oriental, or you went modern, or you went English, or you went American. And I thought, why? I don't eat that way. I don't decide I'm only eating Italian. So why can't I be Murray? Why can't I be Murray, who is Enzo Mari fan, a Danese fan? You know, I knew what was what, and yet I can't help it. I like these figurines because I like them. So I did this exhibition where we brought in all of these figurines, all of it. And I even, I wasn't allowed to say, but borrowed things from the Royal Palace, which were original 18th century pieces. And I thought, to make it real, through intermediaries to Duke Franz, who would be the king of Bavaria, who was living in the palace at the time, and I got him to agree to let me, Murray, dig up the lion, the symbol of Bavaria, from in front of the palace and put it in the moss window. Because I thought, for 30 days, I need to be not like, people have to understand it ain't there, now it's here. This is take it or leave it. This is the real thing.
And did they take it or leave it in New York? What was the reaction?
Well, the first reaction was horror, or more like hatred. Because people got pissed at me, and friends of mine said, you're making fun of us. First you're telling us this thing, now you're telling us this. But I wasn't. I was just saying that it all speaks to each other. You know, there is evolution. It is a straight line. It is a progression. We can multitask now. We can read fiction, nonfiction. We can read cooking books. We can read comic books. We can read poetry. Why can't we encompass all of these expressions? And people wanted Moss to remain a contemporary industrial design store. And I felt these are manufactured products. So these, look, when you think about it, the Brown calculator was taken out of production in 10 years. But the Nymphenburg figurine was in production for 250 years. So what about that? Like, why? Why did enough people continue to buy that for that to survive? So that was my favorite. Yeah. And it kind of changed things, because once people trusted me that I wasn't actually being cynical, they started to follow this idea.
Let's talk a bit more about some more specific techniques that you use within the store. You can call them curatorial techniques or retailing techniques, I'm not sure which, but one of them which you refer to in the subject of your talk, the title of your talk, this apples and oranges idea. So the technique of pairing. I mean, this is obviously really, and I don't mean that as the fruit, I actually mean...
I thought you meant that as the fruit.
I mean, putting two unlike things together.
Well, again, I think you put any two things together. Like if I pick you and you, and or I look at two people on the subway, I think the mind starts to see similarities, differences, to make connections. I think that's what we do, is we form communities. And so I was, for example, at the Manil collection in Houston, just yesterday or the day before. They had the 25th anniversary of it, and we're friends, and blah, blah, blah. And I go to the storage room. First of all, it's very curated. The whole premise of the place is you give one wall per thing, and you do it, and blah, 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 which I love. But then you go to the storage room, and it's just hung with those hooks, and some of them are empty. And I looked at, and it's not curated, they just hang it where there's an empty space. And I swear to God, I thought it was, I started to see connections between things. Like things that it looked as curated as downstairs. Because I can't help myself. You just think, there's so many, and I wonder if that's a common gesture. It's the way I've evolved and developed. But if I can show you, if I figure out how to do this, can I?
Yeah, press that button.
Okay, this I just wanted to show you. We did this auction, and October, very recently, and this is something I always wanted to do, was to take, and this was considered a big deal internally. This was at Philips de Paris, and they gave me the place to do an auction, to curate, forgive the expression, an auction. And so what I said was, okay, I want to put this Martin Boss table, which is sculpted. It's a table, it seats 12, you can eat your spaghetti dinner on it, but it's sculpted, okay? By him, by hand, clay applied to an armature. And I want to put it with, in fact, on top of it, a Giacometti. Nobody would argue that the Giacometti is sculpture. Many people argued that that sculpture has nothing to do with the table. So I said, I insisted that we put this Giacometti on top of the table, and that I put my money where my mouth is, and I go, you can handle this, everybody. I'm not saying the Giacometti is the same as the Martin Bass. What I'm just saying is they're not in different parts of town. They're not in different doorways. They're not with different wraps, with different spiels, with different shtick. The Giacometti is on the table is sculpted, the Giacometti is sculpted. What do you think? Everybody thought that the table would kill the sale of the Giacometti. Both pieces sold. The Giacometti sold for $3 million and the table sold for $40,000. I wasn't trying to say that they're the same. I just wanted to acknowledge the fact that sculpture, a functional object, can have a duality. And that duality is normally punishing the value of that object, because we prefer that it just do what it does, and if it's doing something else, keep your mouth shut. And certainly it will contaminate art. You can't show it with art, because if functional objects for $40,000, which is a lot of money, but it's not $3 million, are sculptural, then how does that throw a wrench into the whole system, the whole mercantile system? So that's what I do. Yeah, I just want to show one more thing.
Thanks.
This is a painting that's really thick. It's called Impasto Technique. That was by Olitsky. And this is a chair by Alessandro Cifo. And the chair is clearly a canvas. It's a chair. Looks like a chair, sits like a chair, it's a chair. But look at what they took, they stole, they borrowed, they imposed themselves, they allowed themselves to take the technique of the two-dimensional and apply it to a three-dimensional object. We need to get accustomed to that. Is that threatening to the Olitsky? In no way. It looks like the chair is almost reverting to be two-dimensional, and the Olitsky is struggling to be three-dimensional. So I think that's cool.
That's very cool too. What ultimately caused you to close the doors of Moss earlier this year?
Money.
Which aspects of money? The lack of, I'm assuming.
Well, I say money because it couldn't support itself. And it was, there was this thing called a recession, which was like a depression. We had expanded tremendously. We had a small client base that was New York based, that hit the wall and stopped buying everything. The system that we were operating under, it's a long story, but what you should know is it started with the fact that we created this district. We didn't create it, it created itself around us. And so suddenly we're an anchor. So all our competitors are going, hey, Moss is doing so, we were doing fab. So Moss is doing so great, let's open up next door. So the next thing you know, SoHo became a design district. So all of our vendors were our next door neighbors. So what am I gonna do? So we're gonna go, and it coincided with the emergence of studio art, which was limited edition one-off pieces, functional works which have an expressive element where the function is diminished, which was my original premise anyway. So I focused on that because when you own the series, it's not really a competitive situation. The deal is you got to pay up front. It got very fancy. So you have to pay $400,000 up front for the first edition and the last edition. Blah, 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 blah. So then you go to Art Basel, you got to rent a space for $40,000, da 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 da. And then this thing hit. And meanwhile, we had a store in Los Angeles, a place that I suggest no one ever go back to again. little bitter. A little bitter. But what happened was the times moved on. This idea of narrative in work became acceptable. And I feel like a contributor to that. We're not there yet. There's a lot to do. But I feel that it's no longer freakish to consider this. And also, I did it. It was 18 years. The money part of it is the rent went up to astronomical. It was the whole thing. I came down with this Parkinson's. So physically it was, and I used to do, I did this myself. I had a lot of people, but basically I did it, okay? So I was worried, what happened, because they can't track this, what happens if tomorrow suddenly I can't do it? But I have this thing, this albatross. So I decided that everybody was suffering, all these businesses were suffering, and I thought, here I am, they're looking to me to put the stuff in the store to save the world. And I just got sick of it. I thought, I'm not here to save the world. And it's a lie, because I can't, because it's not working. So I can take this whole collection and put it in here and have somebody believe they're going to get 6 months grace period before they have to close their business. But it's not going. It's a lie. So that's the truth. That's what happened.
So you exploded the bricks and mortar aspect, but you took the Murray with you and launched Moss Bureau, as you've called it. And we actually have another question from a student which relates to that kind of transition. So Catherine, do you want to ask your question?
Hi, I'm Catherine.
Hi, Catherine.
I'm just wondering what you think the most valuable lesson that you've sort of taken with you from Moss into Moss Bureau kind of thing.
The most valuable lesson? Well, I think it's reinforced my understanding that the things don't matter. The things are there. The things matter to the extent even more so that they're souvenirs. And again, remember, I don't sell medical equipment, okay? But the people, what I have access to is extraordinary. I have incredible access. I don't know how long it'll last, but I have real access to people, to studios. I could talk to most anybody I want in the subject that I love, which is a very wide subject. And what the fuck am I going to do about that asset? Because if I sit downstairs and buy things and put them in the store, I have so much more available to me in excess of that. So that's one of the reasons why I'm here. I want to do things. I want to teach, or whatever you call it. I want to learn, okay?
You call it teach.
I want to curate, because I like making connections between things. I want to write, but I have too much, and I don't know, and it's in excess of what I have a need for, or what I ever had a need for at Moss. So I need to do something with that productively, which doesn't require great physical dexterity. That's where I'm at right now, what I'm trying to figure out. So I'm looking for a job.
You mentioned teaching briefly, and one of our students had wanted you to go a bit further into that. So Sandra, can you answer?
Hi, my name is Sandra.
Hi, Sandra.
You have given lectures at art schools and universities before. Why do you find it important to be close to academia? And what does it give you with this relationship between academia and university?
Thank you. Well, first of all, I think there's only one way to say, I think that the give back answer is bullshit. Okay? The world has been so kind to me, my life has gone so well, I really feel I should give society back. That's not, no. Okay? It hasn't been that nice to me. it's because of you. It's like you ask a question. I'm 63 years old. How old are you?
25.
So I get to hear what's on your mind. That's a privilege for me. I don't have children. I don't have grandchildren. So I like, but my mind is current, or I like to stay current. So I need to know, like, what questions are you going to ask me? What do you look like? Are you polite? Are you impolite? Are you anxious? Are you interested in this? Is this a good school? Is this a bad school? Where are we going? Like, I'm doing this for my own. I mean, my eyes and ears are open. You know, I'm not giving back. And that's why, so I have a few questions of my own. We're getting there.
Yeah, that's what the bar is for. Oh, for sure.
But for example, I was wondering if we're overeducated, which I said to you. I'm starting to think we're overeducated. Because I go to the Barnes Foundation, you know, that place where is it? Philadelphia. And I go because friends of mine, Todd and Billy, designed the place, and there was a party and it was fancy and I love them. But then I realized I wasn't really looking at the place because I had never been to the Barnes collection before. So I start to look at the way the work is hung. And it freaked me out. Because it's like this guy Barnes was raised by wolves. It's like he was raised in a cave. Nobody told this guy that the postman is the one. Nobody said the famous one goes in the middle. The famous one doesn't go all the way to the left in the corner next to a minor Renoir. Are you crazy? You know, nobody told this guy, like they told me, that you don't take a Picasso blue period and portrait and you don't put two folklore birds below it with a basket of fruit. You know, I was saying that I was educated at Columbia University 400,000 years ago because they had this famous literature course. And my education was really fucked up. I was taught you read 6 pages in certain order of everybody, so I'm erudite, but I'm stupid. Okay? And I was told what's what. I have a lot of baggage, and it's part of my being is I'm trying to get rid of it. Because how wonderful to be smart and to know things and read things and learn things, but not be told, this is the good one. This is the Mona Lisa. Okay? Because if you go to the Ducal Palace in Urbino, you're going to see a Raphael that you're going to die over that has no guards, that's on an easel in a giant room, that's breathtakingly beautiful. Why isn't that the most famous painting in the world? Because we are programmed. So, and I wonder, and I think that the education is about being almost undoing the hierarchy. The education is not about learning what's what. It's about learning what can be. That's very, very, very important, which is one of the reasons why I'm here.
Have you actually taught how to curation? I know you don't like the word, but how to arrange objects?
No.
If you were going to, is this something that can be taught? How would you advise our students to go about following in your footsteps if they wanted to?
Well, is that relevant to this group, curating?
Yeah, we have a curating class, yeah.
Well, the first thing is, why are you doing this? I mean, I'm just making this up, okay? But like, you know, it's like, okay, we're curating a collection of Moravian, is there such a thing as Moravian? Wedding dresses. Why? So why are we doing it? What's it about? Okay, what's expected? Who said, hey, I got these 6 Moravian wedding dresses? What is? Let's remember the origin. Why? Why? And then, what do you think about it? Because you are not God. You are you. You are a person with a certain taste, a certain education, with limits. You have financial limits. You have realities to your life. You have experiences that are limited. So why you then? What are you going to do about this? Do you need to be a different person to do this? Can it help it come through your filter? No. So it's going to be JoJo's take on Moravian wedding dresses. Just accept that. And then it's going to be, are you going to grow through this experience? What are you going to get out of it beside $5,000? What are you going to get out of this? How ambitious are you? What fascinates you about this? Is there anything that fascinates you? And then do it like it's with everything, that it's the only thing and everything you will ever do is that. Like your whole being, express yourself entirely through that one thing. It's not about how many you do, it's about what are you doing right now, and do it as if it is your one and only forever and ever exhibition.
Sounds like a good class. I'm ready for that one. What kinds of aspects of design are you most interested in right now? What are you researching at the moment?
Well, I like the things that are the scariest to me, because at a certain age you can, like they say, you can wear diamonds. At a certain age, you don't really care if you look like the jerk, which is not entirely true. But so I like to go out of my depth because it's time to jump out of the airplane, and I don't want the Lifetime Achievement Award. I want to do something, and so I'm 3D printing. Stereo, it's called additive layered manufacturing. Used to be called rapid prototyping. I became the go-to guy.
Do you have an image of that?
Probably. Let me see, I have to go ahead many.
It's okay if you don't.
Well, there's one, but I'll show you. Could you advance this?
Yeah, sure.
What happened was I had to, no, we're going to go through this whole thing. Keep going, please. This is the auction catalog. Can I say something about this?
Yeah.
This is, we sold that chair for a lot of money, and that's a beautiful 1959 Michoud. What do you do when you have a chair that's burned? Okay, the Campana brothers are burned, the stuff isn't selling, what do you do? Okay, so you decampana it. And I said, I'm not putting this as a famous Campana piece. It is what it is. But what I'm saying is, it's kind of a Rorschach test. When you look at that Michoud, you start to see, which is an ink drawing, very beautiful in my opinion, you start to see the figural. When you look at the panda bears, you start to see abstract. So that's what I was talking about, and it kind of worked. We sold both those things. There were many. This I wanted to show. I put this vase on a shelf in front of this painting because I wanted to just have an opportunity to tell people, this is at the auction, that at the moment art trumps design. That it so overwhelms it that you can't see the furniture, you can't see the art and the design, because we are obsessed with the two-dimensional art. End of story.
Oh, that
Yeah. Here we go. Okay. Iris van Herpen. I was invited to do a show at the V&A last year by this Belgian company and the V&A on 3D printing. And I thought, 3D printing, I know nothing about 3D printing, and the technology terrifies me. But what I do know, because I've been going for 50 years to the V&A, So what I thought was, rather than get stuck in a room called High Technology at the V&A and use the V&A as a really cool, prestigious address, I was going to be at the V&A. And I was going to crash through, and I picked 6 or 12 of my favorite things that I've been going for 50 years. And this is the Rococo, you know, the British rooms, historical rooms. And there's a Rococo mantelpiece that I loved. So I thought, I want to use the technology to illuminate the work at the V&A, and by the way, it all happens to be made through this technology. So here is a Rococo dress that looks a hell of a lot like that brilliant Rococo chimney piece. But what happened was, and there was a lot of issues in doing this, because there are fiefdoms at the V&A, and I wanted it to be like a Christo experience. Like, for example, there was a niche, and there's only one empty niche in a wall at the entrance to the V&A off Exhibition Road that I know because I've been going 50 years, and there's an empty niche. And I always wondered, and nobody knows why the niche is empty. So I thought, I'm going to put something in the niche. Because the way that you celebrate the niche is you put something in and then you take it away. And then people go for 10 days. Is there normally something in that niche? I never noticed that. And then you take it away and they go, what happened to that thing that was in the niche? So I thought the person who was in charge of the niche would love me. The person in charge of the niche hated me. The person in charge of the niche is called the keeper of the niche. And her job, full time, by the V&A, paid for by the government, was to make sure nothing goes in the niche. I swear to God. So this is just a little curatorial thing. So I decided I could pull rank, because I was in a position to pull rank and say, okay, just go, get out of my face, I'm putting something in the niche. But I decided to use this as an opportunity to civilize myself. So I argued, like debated, and I won. And I got something, I lost the keeper of the pedestal, because there was a Medici pedestal I wanted to put something on, and there was the keeper of the pedestal, and he said, no way, he said, this pedestal is art, it is not a pedestal. And I said, well, it was born as a pedestal, wouldn't it be fabulous? And I did my rap for it to be a pedestal once again, and blah, blah, blah. So, in any case, back to this, Iris van Herpen did this dress, which was 3D printed. And what I wanted to show was styles come and go, but they always resurface in the time that they resurface in real time. And so the Rococo was reborn in the technology of 2011. And that was, and also this will change, since if people were interested to ask, I wanted to say, to use the opportunity to say how this technology is going to change our entire lives. Because let's talk about couture, that's a dress. You used to take measurements, now you go to the airport, they scan your body. So you get scanned, no big deal. Your body is exactly put into digital form in a computer. It's sent to a designer who designs digitally the dress for your body. You buy from the French couture a disc. It's sent to you locally. UPS goes out of business. You take the disc, you print it locally, this will become ubiquitous, and that's how you do it. So I said, what do you think about that? So it gave me an opportunity to address the resurgence of styles. It gave me an opportunity to be in that room that I wanted to always be in. And it gave me an opportunity to talk about the technology in a way that would, like, I wanted it to be viral. I wanted to suggest that you had to walk everywhere, and wherever you went, you would find this technology, because that's what's going to happen.
Are there any more images?
Yeah, the next one. No, well, that was, okay, that's 17 pairs of what I imagine to be Elizabethan prostitute shoes. Because this bed, it always bugged me, has always been presented as the bed of ware, which people think is a royal, noble household bed. In fact, it was commissioned by the town of Ware, it's Elizabethan, an inn in the town of Ware, and advertised in its day as basically, more or less, come have the sex of your life in the biggest bed of England. But the V&A cleaned it up.
They didn't put
And
it
it
quite like that.
It doesn't say that at all.
No,
Okay?
I'm missing the story.
So, and part of the gaudiness is concealed by the drapery, the carving. So I thought, I'll just put 17 prostitutes in the bed. So I just lined up, there's one male pair of shoes, and 17 pairs, yes, and 17 pairs of shoes. And it gave me an opportunity to tell the story of the gaudiness of the bed of Ware. So I thought I was doing a favor to the V&A by illuminating it. They were not amused. But
You got this one.
but I got it passed, which was, and then there's one more actually. This was, if you look at the left, that's a 3D printed bust of Lady Belhaven. If you look, you skip the middle one and you look at the out of focus big one, that's the same bust. Lady Belhaven, 1827 marble. What we did was, I thought, this is the British Hall of Sculpture, hallowed ground. But sculpture evolves, methodologies evolve. So there's casting, there's carving, there's blah, blah, blah. So I thought, now there is 3D printing. So what am I going to do about it? So I went to Lady Belhaven, whom I've always loved. Her downcast eyes, her thoughtfulness, her sort of Mona Lisa smile. And we sent people to scan it, because you can do it now without touching the art, which was brand new at the time, because they won't let you touch it. They had guards and everything. Then Lady Belhaven lived in the computer. We sent it to Stephen Jones, the famous British milliner, to design a hat.
So cheer her up.
So, yeah. Well, I thought Stephen Jones gets to go back to 1827. That was my pitch to him. And design a hat for Lady Belhaven, who knew Chopin, who was friends with the Prince of Wales. And Lady Belhaven gets to come forward to 2011 and get a hat designed by Stephen Jones. So we printed it. They wouldn't let me move the middle one to put it next to her. So there she is on her own pedestal. But it was like the people did like a double take. And what I wanted to show was art is always inspired by other art. It used to, like when I was at Nymphenburg, you'd see people copying etchings from the 16th century. Well, now you can actually scan the thing and print it and embellish it. And I think that should be talked about, thought about, respectfully addressed. So that was my contribution.
We're going to take one more student question and then open up. Nawa, your question about beauty, I think, would come in quite well here. Would you mind standing up?
I'm sorry, the last part?
Do you think it correlates to truth?
To truth.
Yes. Yeah. That's like
Yes. I think for many reasons I've always been afraid. Can you hear me without this? For many reasons I've always been afraid of being pegged. He's gay. He's Jewish. He's white. He's this, he's that. So it's part of my being. I don't mean to oversimplify it, but I've always believed in a very expansive definition of the truth. People say that I have good taste. I reject that. Everything, my mantra is, if I had one, is this. Pick a criteria, any criteria you want, write it down. Based on that criteria, I could say beautiful, not beautiful, good, bad, acceptable, not acceptable, yes, no, in 15 seconds, I can do it. Pick another one, I could do the same thing. So I think that we know that we see beauty differently. I believe that beauty is truth, or that truth is beautiful, but that there are multiple truths, and therefore multiple things of beauty. And that's not a cop-out. That's just a 63-year-old life experience. And I prefer the multiplicity. I prefer the contradictions. I just think you declare your criteria, and then write your manifesto. But I reject, for example, Dieter Rams, this guy from Brown, however you want to say it, wrote this manifesto. Good design is, and he called it the commandments, the 10 commandments. And he and I became very close, but I reject that totally. And I rejected it because, and I know why Dieter did it, which I won't go into the whole thing, but I think what he provided with that universal shelving system was a place for us to put all of our ideas, our chaos, our Babel, our Tower of Babel-like noise, all of our diverse all of our contradictions, all of our different senses of beauty, and put them in such an organized way that they become music rather than noise. And does that?
Very nice answer, thank you. Let's see if some other people have some questions. Not at the moment. I know some more students do, so you might have to fight.
Can we talk about...
is there anything we didn't cover yet?
This artsy. Do you know about artsy? It's a thing. Okay. It's brand new, and they did something that's very interesting to me, which is, you know how I'm always thinking, this looks like that. This would be an interesting coupling with that. That's my shtick, okay? Well, artsy is now taking this, and this is something for you guys to think about because it's happening, which is computer-driven analysis, artificial intelligence, making connections that we may like or we may not like, okay? And artsy has, based on the Genome Project, I'll be very fast, and the Genome Project, what they do is they have a panel of experts. And these experts assign art 800 plus characteristics. Round, soft, red, Picasso, big, framed, glazed, etc., etc., etc. 800 characteristics. And these they call the genome of that work of art. It's genes. And they feed it into the computer. So they say, if you like this apple, you're going to love this Picasso. But they don't tell you why. They don't explain it. And sometimes you'll see apple, Picasso. And they'll say, and the person said to me, who I like very much, who's in charge of this, of artsy, said, that's because there are glitches. And I say, how can an algorithm have a glitch? It's not a glitch, it's just we don't like it. Because there are connections that we like to make, that are within our comfort zone, that we consider intelligent, correct, profound. But then there are connections which are less profound or border on the superficial. And I think it's interesting to give over this curatorial human intelligence connections to artificial intelligence, because I think we need to learn to play well together, because it's not going away. But I think that's just at the threshold of that. And I'm just thinking about it, that's all. I wonder, does anybody here have anything to say about that?
That sounds scary. Yeah, go ahead.
Actually, what you brought up about the genome tendency, right, to show people more of what they already like, I think is a huge problem in terms of culture and education and design and aesthetics. And I think that what excites me is to see the opposite happening as well. So computer programs being generated that on purpose take you far away. So if they see you watching too many films on Netflix, for example, that are within this trend, they on purpose start bringing into your life.
Yeah.
So it's like if we on Twitter only followed, Democrats that, share a certain view, and you opt for this purposeful chaos, you all of a sudden become exposed to that which is different. So I think it's an exciting antidote to that tendency.
Well, I first got wind of this on eBay. because on this medication I stay up till 2 in the morning, so I figured, what am I going to do between 11 and 2? So I'm going to go on eBay and I'm going to do something instead of watching more episodes of MI5. And so what I've started to collect, and my budget is around $9.88, literally, are these press photos. You know what a press photo is? From a press service. That are junky prints, which have typing written on them. And I brought a couple in case anybody wants to see it afterward. And what they are, they're functional objects because they were there to service a story. And I collect mostly the 20s and 30s. I just started. But I look for ones where, in spite of the fact that it is a story about prohibition, the photo is amazing. The photo picks up on our artistic development of the day. The fact that it's all wrinkled and torn and sort of messed up is because it has the story that it was printed, scotch taped to the back of it. It was kept in a file drawer. It's a functional object, like a chair, which has another, like that Martin Boss table, that actually has something else, and it was probably never seen again. And it's an original print, stamped and done. And the reason I mention this in terms of the genome is I'll find something extraordinary, like somebody taking a driver's test in 1924, and it'll say, if you like this photo, you'll like this, and then there'll be a photograph of the crotch of a woman. Like that happened to me, and I go, what is this connection?
That's what happens at 2 a.m. on the computer at night.
But there is some, but can the computer make a mistake? Or is there some connect, because it doesn't tell me why I would like that. It just, so it's just interesting, isn't it? Because this tool, this robotic, this algorithmic computer digital genome phenomena is playing with us. And I think it's something to wrap our minds around.
You need to open a design gallery.
Any other questions? Yeah, one at the back there.
I'm curious about, like, typically museum spaces that they really shy away from commercializing their central gallery spaces. But
Who does? I'm sorry.
Most museums and cultural
Yeah.
institutions, that they don't want to use their general gallery spaces for commercial ventures, but then they have these little side shops or things like that, and most shops shy away from educating the general public. And where you see places that are kind of crossing over those boundaries and what the potential is for big institutions to take on that idea of mixing those things up.
Well, that's a good question. I've tried. I like museums and I hate museums. I was on the board of the Cooper Hewitt. I resigned. I'd like to work in a museum, but I would like to work in like the Met, because the Met, like, I really hate the fact that the MoMA segregates the design from the other disciplines. I think it's stupid. I think it's irresponsible, and I don't care what anybody says. It's wrong. It's totally, totally shameful. And it was never the intention of Alfred Barr. It was never the intention of that museum. And it's a disservice. And I think the same thing with the Met. Those lonely Roman Greek statues sitting there talking to each other over a millennium, okay? When you go to the Frick and you see the Vermeers chatting away with the chairs and the bowls and having a grand old time. And I just think that this segregation, this Noah's Ark approach in the museums, okay, the Barnes was an unusual example, but even the Menil and their friends that I went to does the this and the this, they do the work for you. And that you know, it's like we don't live that way. It's for the convenience of people like myself who need to territorialize. You do this, I'll do that, okay? And that has to go away. That has to go away. And what I'd like to do is get a job to crash that. What would be the harm of taking that Rietveld chair and moving it over 30 meters in front of that Mondrian? What's the big deal? Who's going to die? Okay. Is somebody going to go, I never knew that the Rietveld was a painting. Duh. I mean, what is the problem with people?
Yep. You'll be the new keeper of the niche at the Met. I can see it.
Right. And a veil. They're nice, actually.
Good image. Okay, yeah.
There's a kind of old-fashioned thing, like in the Brooklyn Museum, of period rooms.
Yes.
But you could mix things up and create these new, not period rooms, but rooms that are...
But in the period rooms, what nobody understands is there were new things of the period. There were outrageous things that were put into the room, innovations in technology and material usage and ideas. It was in the 18th century rooms at the Met. That was the age of reason. There are things in there that were shocking to visitors of the period, that now we've lumped and glumped all together into being 18th century Rococo or 18th century whatever, Baroque, late Baroque. But that's not the truth.
Maybe you need a new word instead of period room. Something.
I like every way of categorizing, and I like period rooms, but I like them because they're the period. It's like looking at a Rothko. It's much more than you think. The period of a Rothko is the parameter. So you're in the Rothko period, and then you look inside of it, and you see depth and breadth, you see infinity, you see finiteness. You look at an 18th century period room at the Met, and we need to be encouraged. They need to tell us how to see the vastness of ideas that are in those rooms. That's what has to happen.
All right, we'll just take a couple more questions. Yeah, Michelle.
Sorry, this is going on.
I have like two questions, but I'll please stop.
Yeah, just quick questions.
What you've done with the record prototyping, will you incorporate any of those objects of sculpture into what you're doing with the Moss Bureau? And can you expand a little bit upon what the Moss Bureau is going to be doing?
Well, I may have gotten a job. Because the V&A little thing, people liked it. So I got a call from the company begrudgingly. We have an opportunity to do something at the Beaux-Arts Museum in Belgium, but they want you to do it. We have an opportunity to do something during this conference we're having at the Warhol Foundation, but they want you to do it. So life is looking up. But my rule is, which they just get pissed off on, aside from the fact that they have to pay, is I wouldn't go to the Beaux-Arts or the Warhol Foundation and just use it as an address. I'd have to go, what's going on here? What connection can we make to Warhol? I mean, why waste it? Why not? But the 3D thing is a little bit, because here's what happened. It was my one clever idea in my whole life. I was so afraid of this stuff that I found the only guy who's the head of the US company of MGX, which is the leader in this technology. And I said, we'll give you a desk at Moss. You could just work there. And because I knew I'm never going to read the book. So what I do is I just eavesdrop. I just go sit at his desk and say, can I get you a cup of coffee? And then I go, what are you working on? And we've become friends. And this has been for years now. So I'm up on it in a very conversational way. Because I could never read a trade journal on that subject or anything like that. So I'm pretty informed in that way.
So,
You talk a lot about your paranoia of technology, having a bit of time with it. Do you feel at home with these things, with these new plastic objects? Is that important to feel homely?
Well, first of all, I'm okay now out of my depth. That was the first thing. I don't have to be the be-all. I don't have to, my memory falters. I don't have to remember. I don't have to set the standard. I could do my thing. I could have to articulate why. But I don't have to be the authority. I don't have to be able to explain it to you. why does it have to be limited to my intelligence? What I have to do is articulate something and then rely on the fact and hope for the fact that others like yourself will engage in it and embellish it. That's the point. I'm not the end of the line. That's not my responsibility. I refuse that responsibility. I would never do anything out of fear otherwise. So I have to do something well and say, this is what I did. Help me out here now. What do you see?
I like that. I think that's a good note to end on. I think we should carry our conversation on in the other room, because right now our chairs and tables and bowls and glasses are talking to each other in lonely ways. But before we go next door, please join me once again in thanking the amazing Murray Moss.